The IPO process is a point in time for our company. It's a great point in time. You get to communicate your story, your history of what you've been working on for years that maybe you couldn't talk about to the press, to the public, maybe even to your family. But it's just a point in time. But what FP&A needs to do as part of the FP&A, or the IPO process, excuse me, is that we need to be able to communicate, predict, analyze, and improve the company's performance in a way that the research analysts on the street, that the investment bankers can understand. So really what you're doing as part of the IPO is no different than what you're doing as normal course of business with the company. It's just very specific to a point in time. Look beyond the public offering, making sure that you have the capabilities to actually operate as a public company beyond your public filing. So you're going to have to issue earnings guidance. You're going to have to talk about your performance. If you just look at, the trailing 12 months and where you've come from, that doesn't really prepare you where you're going. So what we did and we decided to invest in is a corporate model that allows us to predict performance, net income, EPS, beyond just looking backwards. We could have easily had investment bankers and consultants creating kind of models for us for the IPO to help sell the company, but we needed to operate beyond once the company was sold. So again, I would emphasize that work on what you need to be as a public company for that first earnings call, not for that date where the company goes live. For Hilton Worldwide's perspective, where I came from, we're a very complicated operating company across multiple segments. Really, the CEO, the CFO, and our team were the only ones who actually, when they took a step back, cared and could talk about enterprise performance. Everyone wanted to talk about their functional performance. So we aligned ourselves from the beginning with what does the CFO need for information, what does the CEO need, and most importantly, the owner of the company, which in our case was a private equity company, how do they look at the business? What do they want to see? So we focused our output in the beginning on the up and out reporting. What does a private equity company view as important value drivers? Not maybe internally how we manage our business, that applies to the function, but from the overall enterprise, how do those segments come together and drive enterprise performance? And so we focused on that, and at the end of the day, FP&A was the only team that was credible to talk about that. Everyone else could talk about their functional performance. So we really just established our ability to do that we were a credible source. And at the end of the day, when they looked around, they had to come to FP&A. It doesn't necessarily work at every company, but in our case, it was a complicated enough company with a big enough gap in our ability that we could fill that role.